So it's going to be interesting what happens with Iran in the next, well, a few weeks or days or hours. The oil price, well, that ticked up a little bit last few sessions off its lows. But like if you went back 10 years and you had all this trouble in Eastern Europe, now with Iran and possibly the Strait of Hormuz, Venezuela, that's not a real biggie in some ways, but Iran is one of the fourth or fifth biggest producers for OPEC plus, and if you took that off the market overnight, well, we'll see how much premium that may put on it, because there may be a lot of barrels floating around offshore in storage at the moment. We could be in for interesting times on the oil market if something does kick off with Iran. So my favourite type of Australian government, maybe one that will tell me what to think, tell me how much I can say, and arrest and imprison me for maybe up to 15 years if I piss them off, or if I make someone who, I don't know, may make them feel fearful or intimidated. I see some other YouTubers now and then, and they seem to mention left wing and right wing, and to me, if you don't understand your opponent, like boxing or football, with boxing you've got to understand if the guy's got a fast right hand or good footwork, or he likes throwing his left hook and it's hard. You've got to understand the same with the regime in Australia now. I don't think anyone would argue they may be far left. Without getting into a huge philosophical debate on it, you only have to look at the ideology of it all to see what's really going on. And understanding the difference may be huge, because, as I was saying, if you understand your opponent, then when you see them get up in front of a camera, and they can all talk okay in front of a camera, you know, like put on a suit or a man suit and get a banker's haircut and talk their heads off for 5 minutes, and everyone thinks I know what they're doing. But look at the state of the country. If you want a little bit of an overview, you only have to look back to World War II. World War II still shapes a lot of the world today. I mean, look at Formosa or Taiwan for a start, and you look at Germany in the 30s and early 40s. Well, clearly they were aligned with Italy and Japan, and the US Commonwealth forces were aligned with the USSR, the Soviet Union. Now, that presented a bit of a problem for the socialist propagandists, because you can't have the socialists from Germany invading and destroying cities in the socialist Soviet Union, and then if the Red Army overrun them, they can't really say, we kicked out the socialist invaders. So they looked around and, well, they called them fascists. Now, no one called the US and Canadian and British forces that landed in Normandy, northern France, communists or socialists, just because they were aligned with the Soviet Union. And I may have heard the Prime Minister just the other day talking about prices in supermarkets or something like that. Price control. They want to control the prices. Wage control, the minimum wage. DEI, they want to control who you're employing. State control of the economy, controlling the means of production. A centrally planned economy. And the central bank digital coin, that'll be the big one. So the socialists, they hate being aligned with Mr. H from Germany, but they are. As I've said on the channel before, you don't need to nationalise industries if the state has control over them. DEI, wage control. As far as I know, if you've got over 100 people on your books in Australia, you may have to report to a government agency on who you're employing. And you only have to look at the future made in Australia, or whatever they're calling it. To be part of that, you must be net zero or contributing to net zero. And this is just madness. And the immigration program that Australia has been operating under for many years. And now, look at how Australians have to live. And with the social media ban, and now the new hate laws that have come in, or even the amended ones, and the socialists aren't well aware of social media. You only have to go back to Germany in the 30s, and something called maybe called something like the People's Receiver. It was a small radio, or a few models, very small, cheap to manufacture, and they were distributed throughout Germany. They were very cheap to buy, or you may pick one up for free. And a lot of people in Germany back then had never had a TV or a radio. But the trick was, the only stations you could get were state propaganda stations. How the socialists in Australia would love just to have the Australian Ministry of Enlightenment Broadcasting Corporation as the one channel in Australia. So again, if you go back and look at the under 16 social media ban, and what's been banned and what hasn't been banned, may they be trying to funnel all the kids into certain apps that will give them a certain view of the world that the regime may want them to see. You wouldn't want anyone critically thinking now, would you?